The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 137, Special Edition. 3 players suspended by Michigan head coach Brady Hoke. That and more on today's Special Edition. This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. For Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to this special edition of the Michigan Man Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. As we learned earlier today, Sunday, Coach Brady Hoke has suspended 3 players as the team prepares for action in the Outback Bowl on January 1st. We're going to talk to Michigan beat writer Kyle Meinke from MLive.com and find out what he knows about this situation. It was also a big weekend in Michigan athletics, big end of the week actually, as Michigan women's volleyball fell to Texas in the NCAA Final Four. Men's basketball picked up a big win against West Virginia in New York City yesterday. And the Michigan women came up with another big win to push their record to 9-2 Saturday at the Chrysler Center. But coming up next, Kyle Meinke, Michigan beat writer from MLive.com, joins us to talk about these 3 suspensions. Here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. Here on a special edition of Michigan Game Day is Michigan beat writer Kyle Meinke from MLive.com. Kyle, thanks for taking time to join us on quick notice.
No problem, Mike. Good to be back.
Well, of course, the big news today, which is Sunday, Kyle, the suspensions of J.T. Floyd, Will Hagerup, and Brandon Hawthorne, who will not play in the Outback Bowl. Big news, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's something of a surprise. We hadn't heard too much about any forthcoming suspensions, and in fact, Brady Hoke just on Friday was talking about J.T. Floyd as though nothing were going to happen with them. And he was asked, I asked him if the whole team was going to be available to travel to the Outback Bowl, and he said yes. So I'm not sure if something's happened since or if Hoke was just suppressing this information for the time. But either way, Michigan's down 3 players, 2 of whom are notable for the Outback Bowl. Both J.T. Floyd and Will Hagerup are starters and key starters for Michigan. And I think it's kind of it's really an unfortunate situation for a guy like J.T. Floyd, who's been a third-year starter for Michigan this year and in his 5th season and as a senior. And he's overcome a lot in his career, overcoming injury, to become a pretty good player for Michigan. And, honorable mention All Big Ten this year. And we've listed it by Mel Kiper Jr. as a possible late-round NFL pick. And getting to conclude his eventful career against his home state team, South Carolina. He's from Greenville, South Carolina. And Floyd told me just 2 weeks ago that he was excited for the opportunity for his career to come full circle, and now this comes down. And I think that's really an unfortunate ending for a career such as that. And he's a key player for Michigan. Michigan, remember, is already down Blake Countess at cornerback. That's easy to remember because he hasn't played since the opener against Alabama when he tore his ACL. But Michigan's already down him and starting a young guy, Raymond Taylor, who's played pretty well for Michigan, but still a useful guy. Michigan really leaned on Floyd's experience at corner. Now they're down to him. And they'll probably plug in Courtney Avery, who was given the first opportunity to replace Countess and really struggled in that role. And that's why Raymond Taylor ended up elevating to that starter position. And so Courtney Avery probably will be the guy for better or worse, and have to figure out how to be an every down player. He's been pretty good as a nickelback, but has struggled as a every down cornerback, and I think he's Michigan's really only option there. So that really hurts Michigan. And of course, Will Hagerup, he led the Big Ten in punting this year, was the Big Ten's punter of the year, and he overcame that 4-game suspension from last year, struggles of last year to really put together a great season this year, one of the country's best punters. And Now he's been suspended for the third time in his career, impacting each of his first 3 seasons at Michigan, and you really have to wonder whether he'll be back at Michigan. Nothing's come down in that regard yet. He's only suspended for the Outback Bowl thus far, but 3 suspensions in 3 years is definitely problematic for him.
And of course, Brandon Hawthorne, who is also a senior, this would be his last appearance as a Wolverine. He's not a starter, but he's really been one of the best special teams players we've had this year.
Yeah, you nailed it. He's a reserve linebacker. He's only played sparingly this year on defense, but he has been one of Michigan's most consistent players on the return unit, on the kick coverage units, I should say, on the coverage units, and making several tackles there and impact plays. And I think he kind of embraced that role. You know, and he wasn't going to play a lot on defense. He really made the most of playing on special teams. And now his career, like JT Floyd's, is going to be cut a game short.
Well, you know, when this news broke this morning, actually, there were some rumors last night, Saturday night, Kyle. When you look at these 3 names, do you think, and I know there's not a lot of information out there right now, is this something that JT Floyd, Will Hagerup, and Brandon Hawthorne were involved in together, or do you think these are just incidents that were completely separate?
We have no way of knowing at this point. You know, I mean, I've had some talks and stuff, but, you know, there's just not enough information out there yet to really speculate on whether this was an incident they were all involved in together, or what the deal is. But I can't really speak to that.
Well, with JT Floyd, which really hurts, as you said, Courtney Avery can be plugged in over at that corner. Is that possibly one of the reasons that Dennis Norfleet has been working out on the defensive side, or does that have nothing to do with what happened?
It's certainly possible, and the timing lends itself to that thinking. But we don't know, and Brady Hoke won't be available until to the media until the team travels south to Florida on Saturday. I'll be there then, and I'll certainly ask him. But you know, the timing, you know, makes it seem like it could be that, but you know, we don't know at this point. Certainly, Norfleet's move will help the overall depth at that position, particularly in practice. I'm not, you know, at 5'7" and only playing the position for 2 weeks now. I have a difficult time seeing Dennis Norfleet seeing too much time against South Carolina, even given a full sampling of full practices. Right? I think we'll see Courtney Avery slide from nickelback to the every down corner opposite Raymond Taylor, and then at nickelback probably a guy like Delonte Hollowell or perhaps Terry Richardson, or even maybe safety Thomas Gordon playing in the nickel. And if Thomas Gordon, the safety, would have played in the nickel, I think that you'd see either Marvin Robinson or Jared Wilson, the freshman, playing the joint nickelback back there at safety. I think that's kind of how the rotations will break down. Maybe we'll see Norfleet here and there, but I don't think he'll have an in-game impact, maybe a few plays, but I think his body definitely helps in the practice, just not having JT Floyd out there.
With Will Hagerup out, you know, fortunately for Michigan, they have a very dependable backup in Matt Weil. He did some punting this year, not a lot, but of course, it's a tall order going into a bowl game and asking him to come in and duplicate that 45 per punt average of Will Hagerup, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point that Matt Weil, remember Matt Weil as a freshman last year, he played the four games that Hagerup was suspended. Matt Weil was the guy. He started off a little shaky, but punted pretty well in the last 2 or 3 games of that stretch, and actually was battling Hagerup for the starting job when Hagerup did return. And then remember in last year's Sugar Bowl, Hagerup had 2 pretty bad punts, and Matt Weil actually supplanted him in that game and did well. So I think, you know, there's still a few weeks before this game is played. I think there's plenty of time for Matt Weil to ready himself. He's shown to be a pretty capable option there. I think he's a downgrade from Hagerup. He doesn't have big legs. You know, Hagerup had a really great season, averaging 45 yards punt. That was tops in the Big Ten. He was Big Ten Punter of the Year for a reason. So I think that there is a step down to Matt Weil, but you know, it's not like you're plugging in a guy who's never seen the field. He's seen the field and he's done pretty well when called upon. So I think Michigan has a capable option there. He's just not Will Hagerup.
You know, when these suspension stories break, Kyle, like this, at least since Coach Brady Hoke has taken over, usually everything we learn about that suspension, and it's not much, is usually at the initial announcement. Do you think that's going to be the same case with this story? What we know now is what we will know in weeks.
Probably, unless one of these guys talks. I don't think Will Hagerup will talk just because he's still a member of the team, at least for now. But unless JT Floyd or Brendan Hawthorne talk to somebody, media or otherwise, about what's going on, I don't think we'll find out too much more. That's been Brady Hoke's MO since he came here. When players depart the program, such as Gerald Robinson or Stephen Hopkins the past couple of weeks, or when there's suspensions, typically not much to say. It's just the old go-to violation of team rules, and that's what we've got right now. And I don't think that we'll learn too much more unless some of these players say themselves what happened.
And Kyle, does the team leave on Christmas Eve?
They leave on the 23rd on Saturday. So they'll be down there. They'll practice the 23rd and 24th. They got Christmas off on the 25th, and then they'll practice straight through until the bowl game on January 1st.
Have any of the practices, and there haven't been many thus far, but have any of them been open to the media?
None of the practices have been, but per bowl stipulations, their bowl practices, or at least portions of them, will be available. So we'll get a better look at some of these rotations and how Michigan plans to account for the losses of, especially JT Floyd and on defense. That's going to be the one that Michigan really. There's a pretty clear-cut hierarchy with Matt Weil supplanting Will Hagerup, and then Brendan Hawthorne on special teams. He was a good player there, but you can plug in other guys as well. But Floyd will be the one that everyone will have their eye on as Michigan tries to find a rotation for a cornerback core that suddenly is pretty shaky depth-wise.
As far as the bowl practices and preparation go, last week we heard a lot about Dennis Norfleet moving back to the secondary, to cornerback, to work out. But anything else that you've heard from the coaches or from any of the players about how these early practices have gone thus far?
From what Brady Hoke has said, he prefers, because some teams they'll have these long, intense practices as teams get back going after taking breaks for finals and after their season finales and all that. But Hoke really prefers shorter, crisp workouts. He wants to see his team practice for an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half maybe, but just have it be intense and not keep them there for 2 hours or longer or whatever the case may be. That's something that when he was coaching at I think to an extent at San Diego State, but especially at Ball State, he's talked about basically grinding his team to the ground with like 2-a-days and really practicing hard and just wearing out the team basically before the bowl. Ball State was routed one time by Rutgers by like 25 or 30 points after Ball State had used 2-a-days, and so Brady Hoke said that he won't do that. No 2-a-days. It's basically shorter workouts that are crisp, and Michigan's been doing that. They practiced 4 times as of today, and then they practice again Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before breaking, and then they'll fly down to Florida on Saturday.
Kyle, do you still like this matchup with South Carolina in the bowl game?
I thought going in that South Carolina was going to be the favorite, and I still like South Carolina. South Carolina lost 2 players to zone, ironically enough, on Saturday, a reserve receiver and a backup offensive lineman. So those losses I don't think will hurt South Carolina too much, but it's interesting that 5 players now have been suspended from this game over the weekend. I think the loss of JT Floyd is going to hurt a little bit. You might even see, South Carolina likes to run the ball. Even without Marcus Lattimore, they still like to run the ball. And I think against Michigan now, they might try to challenge the secondary a little bit more, just being downtown. And now JT Floyd, you're going to have a guy like Courtney Avery out there who's, again, a solid player, but when he's been given opportunity to play out wide there, he's struggled. And I would expect South Carolina to challenge him and see how ready he is for that kind of stage.
Well, as always, these suspensions are disappointing, but even more so when you have a senior like JT Floyd, who even the coaching staff has said over recent months they were very impressed with his growth as a leader on the defensive side. And then facing his last game as a Michigan Wolverine against the team that gave him his first offer, that's disappointing. Will Hagerup, your all Big Ten punter. I think to me that is, this morning when I heard the announcement, is what is the most disappointing. It is the last game for 2 seniors, so not good.
The first thing that came to my mind, too, was obviously you have the Big Ten punter of the year in Hagerup, but the first thing that came to my mind was JT Floyd and just thinking about his career and all he's been through, so many ups and downs, being thrust into a position where he had to play because of depth problems as a redshirt freshman on at a terrible defense, and then the following year, his sophomore year, starting for the nation, the worst defense in school history. I mean, just terrible stuff for him. And then the next year, really becoming a good player for a better defense, and then breaking his leg, breaking his ankle, I should say. and then overcoming that, and then playing for terrific defense this year, and he's been through so much. He stuck around, and his career, as he said, was coming full circle, and getting this last opportunity to play for Michigan after a good career, a good past couple of years anyway, and then now it being taken from him, him losing that opportunity to play against South Carolina. It's really, to me, it's an unfitting end for a guy who's been through a lot, and he's one of only 2 or 3 guys who talk to the media every day, every week this year. He wasn't a team captain, but he was definitely a voice of the team. He was a face of the team, and became a real leader in the secondary back there with Jordan Kovacs. And Brady Hoke's been so proud of him all year, even going back into the preseason, but the way he's handled the young guys who were coming up behind him. And then when Blake Hannes went down that opening game, the way that JT Floyd really took Raymond Taylor and those guys under his wing and really led that. But what could have been a big problem for Michigan, losing a starting corner in the season opener, and turned it into a strength. Michigan made number 2 in the country this year in pass defense, and a lot of that comes down to the leadership by Kovacs and by JT Floyd. So it's definitely an unfitting end for him. It's really too bad.
Well, very disappointing. Maybe we'll learn more in the coming days. Maybe we won't. But we'll have a lot to talk about in the next week and a half, 2 weeks, as Michigan prepares for the bowl game. And we look forward, Kyle, to having you back on the show. And thank you on a Sunday afternoon for taking a few minutes from what is a busy day for you because of this story to come on a special edition of the show.
Oh, no problem, Mike. Anytime.
Coming up next, Wolverine Quick Hits as we wrap it up for this special edition of the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, Michigan women's volleyball falls to Texas in NCAA Final Four action. The beginning and the ending were fantastic for the Texas women's volleyball team, and that earned the Longhorns a trip to the national title game on Saturday night. Third-seeded Texas used dominating first and fourth sets and a solid fifth-set performance to eliminate unseeded Michigan in the first match of the NCAA Final Four before 13,385 at the KFC Yum Center in Louisville. The final scores were 25-11, 21-25, 23-25, 25-12, and 15-11. The Wolverines, who ended the season at 27-12, which tied them for sixth in the Big Ten Conference, saw its surprise run to the Final Four end. Michigan was making its first appearance in the national semifinals and was only the second team without one of the tournament's 16 national seeds to ever advance that far. Michigan coach Mark Rosen said Texas was the most athletic opponent the Wolverines had faced this season. Again, a great season, a great run. Congratulations to Mark Rosen and the Wolverines. In men's basketball, sophomore guard Trey Burke and junior guard Tim Hardaway Jr. combined for 52 points to propel the University of Michigan men's basketball team, ranked number 3 in the country this week, past West Virginia Saturday night, 81-66 in Brooklyn. Burke scored a season-high 27 points, converting a career-high 12 field goals, 12 for 16, and dished out 8 assists, while Hardaway matched a season best with 25 points. Freshman guard Nick Stauskas joined Burke and Hardaway in double figures with 10 points. The Wolverines shot 56%, 28 for 50 from the floor, while holding the Mountaineers to just 39%, 20 for 52, including 27%, 8 of 30 in the second half. Michigan will return to Ann Arbor to host Eastern Michigan at 8:30 p.m. on Thursday in a doubleheader with the women's basketball team, who will be matching up with Valparaiso at the Chrysler Center. The game will be televised on the Big Ten Network. The Wolverines again off to that great 11-0 start. The University of Michigan women's basketball team rode an 18-0 run midway through the first half and shot a season-best 54% from the floor in a 60-41 victory over Western Michigan on Saturday at Chrysler Center. Senior guard Kate Thompson recorded her first career double-double, 16 points and 10 boards, to lead the Wolverines to their 4th straight win. Sophomore guard Brene Harris helped pace the U of M offense, matching a career high with 11 points on 4 of 4 shooting. Senior guard Jenny Ryan filled up the box score, contributing 8 points, 7 assists, and 5 boards. Michigan dominated down low, out-rebounding the Broncos 33-25 and outscoring them by a 28-14 margin in the paint. Again, the Wolverines are back on the court Thursday hosting Valparaiso as part of that doubleheader with the men's team. Tip-off is slated for 6 p.m. Coach Barnes-Arico and the ladies off to a great 9-2 start heading into Thursday's action. The University of Michigan hockey team scored twice in the third period on the way to a 2-0 shutout win over Western Michigan Saturday night at Yost Ice Arena. Goaltender Adam Janisic earned his first win and shutout of his career in his first start of the season, and sophomore blue liner Brennan Serval tallied his first career goal, which stood out as the game winner. The Wolverines returned to game action on Saturday, December 29th at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit when they face Michigan Tech for the first game of the Great Lakes Invitational. The puck is set to drop at 7 p.m., and the game can be seen on Fox Sports Detroit. So a disappointing start to the season so far for Coach Red Berenson and the Wolverines, who head into the Great Lakes Invitational with a record of 6-9-2. That's going to do it for this special edition of the Michigan Man Podcast. We will be right back here Wednesday with our regular show, and we're going to talk Michigan hoops. Our guest will be Michigan beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive.com. So until then, for the latest news on Michigan football, tune to www.gbmwolverine.com, become a member, and you will find out what's happening with these suspensions and any news as the Wolverines prepare for the Outback Bowl on January 1st. So until Wednesday, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Thanks for joining us on this special edition of the show, and until we meet again, as always, go Blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue.